just to let people know, there's a ton of different things that we need to talk about with different picks happening and different announcements, happening for a number of teams. But one that is really standing out is the Kansas City Current. And there's been a number of moves that have been made and announced for this team. So for this first top segment, we're going to be really kind of focusing in on this club for a little bit because they're really giving us a lot to talk about here, Lisa, in this offseason.
They really are. Kansas City is a team that you need to keep paying attention to. Turn those Twitter notifications on for KC Current on Twitter because constant movements are happening. And we predicted a little bit of this before the offseason happened. We knew that Kansas City was a team that didn't have the best 2021 season, but that didn't discourage them at all based on the run they made towards the end of the regular season, not making it into playoffs, but being that disruptive team for other clubs to make it or not make it into playoffs. That's what Kansas City did. And because of that, it was already that mindset of, we are going to continue to climb and continue to get better. And over the last few weeks, Sandra, Kansas City has made tremendous moves and hires. No head coach yet as of this recording that we are doing, but hopefully that is to come next. But why don't you run us through some of the picks that have been happening here?
I love that. I love it. We always got to put the disclaimer, right? Whenever we're going, whenever we go through like the off season stuff, it's like, hey, at this moment, the time of this recording, always got to hit the folks with that disclaimer. But Kansas City announcing a trade with North Carolina Courage to bring United States Women's National Team forward Lynn Williams to the Kansas City Current. So Williams to the Current. Kansas City receives North Carolina Courage. North Carolina Courage's natural second round and fourth round picks in the 2023 draft. North Carolina Courage get $200,000 in allocation money and the rights to goalkeeper Kaylin Rowland and the Current's first round pick in the upcoming 2023 NWSL draft. The Courage now hold 3 first round picks in the 2023 NWSL draft. And Williams is actually currently in Australia Women's League with Melbourne Victory on loan, that's going to be coming to a close pretty soon. And then she'll eventually report to camps, obviously February 1 with Kansas City. But it was a big bit of news for Kansas City with Lynn Williams here. And that's kind of really what kicked things off. And it was coming off of the tail end of maybe some other kind of front office announcements as well. This team is, like you said, Lisa, in the process of an ongoing search for a head coach. But they announced a goalkeeper coach in Lloyd Laxley from Orlando Pride, someone who had experience with 5 years at that organization. And they also announced a new general manager, a position that they did not have in Kansas City front office, in Cami Levin, former NWSL player, returning to NWSL, this time in the role of general manager, has a ton of, obviously, I mentioned the playing experience, having been with Sky Blue, Houston Dash, and also has played overseas, Australia, Europe, and now making her return to NWSL in an admin role, coming off of some sports business experience, being with WWE, right? It was kind of something that I think maybe folks were like, okay, that's nice, but I think this is a little bit of a cooler announcement for Levin that people maybe anticipate.
I agree. This hire for Kansas City is huge. As a GM, Levin has firsthand experience playing in this league right when it started in 2013. That's when she went to Sky Blue, and then in the expansion draft ended up going over to Orlando. They picked her in the 2015 expansion draft that the Pride was in. So she's been through a draft, an expansion draft, leaving the league in 2017, playing overseas and having that experience. So to have someone in such a position of power as the GM to be overseeing all of the management of the soccer operations, reporting directly to the owners, Kansas City has so much going for them at this club, and not even talking about on the field yet, just looking at their ownership that they have and the rebrand that they did at the end of the 2021 season, the facilities they are building for their players. And now to put Cami Levin in such a position of power and influence to be a person that has direct impact on the players and on the club. It's really such a great choice. And she actually played collegiately at Stanford with Lola Bonta, midfielder for Kansas City Current. They won the first Stanford championship in 2011 together. So that's another connection that helps, honestly, because that communication between the players and front office staff and even general manager maybe is something we haven't seen a lot in past NWSL seasons in clubs throughout the league. And now to already have that connection and that relationship, and Cami Levin, of course, a female in this role, is huge. It shows a lot about the direction that Kansas City is looking to go. I love this hire. I know when it happened, Sandra, I hit you up on the text message. I was like, this is great. Like, this is a fantastic hire. But even you mentioned Lloyd Yaxley, goalkeeper coach, coming into Kansas City. That's a really big hire as well for Kansas City. That shows that they're looking to take their goalkeeping and their individual coaching to the next level, because he is a veteran in the NWSL, over 10 years coaching in this league, last 5 years with Orlando Pride. Of course, Ashlyn Harris was there at Orlando Pride, so he's coached some of the top players in the world. He was also at Washington Spirit for a stint, and he's been with the United States national team from some of their youth teams, U17, U18, U23, and also their senior level. So he has that understanding of coaching at expansion clubs and newer clubs in the league with younger players, developing players, and then also maintaining players that are already at the top of their game. For example, Ashlyn Harris at at Orlando Pride, already at the top of her game, but how do you continue to progress that and fine tune the small details? And that's something that Lloyd Yaxley can definitely, definitely do. I mean, the projection of Kansas City right now, they're just skyrocketing. They're going completely up, whereas we've seen other teams really plateau at this point of the season.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we took notice of it, I think, pretty early on, right? When we saw that they really kicked off the offseason and then kind of that early trade window by announcing Sam Mewis and bringing a player like that into the fold. And we did a little bit of an very early teaser prediction of power rankings, but we were still leaving ambitious with it a little bit and put Kansas City, I think, in that 5 or 6 spot to be able to maybe contend for, a sort of late kind of low kind of playoff spot, even with just getting somebody like Sam Mewis in the mix in that midfield. It was all very, very impressive. This was a team and a franchise, quite frankly, that kind of put their eye onto the future. They really sort of put their eye into 2022, knowing where they were in their inaugural season. They started it in first place. They started in last place, ended it in last place. And, they announced they unveiled their new badge, their new crest, their new name in that final home game of the season. They immediately were like, hey, we're looking ahead, announced plans, right, for the first ever of its kind NWSL specific soccer stadium, which is intended to be in the downtown area along the river in Kansas City. There's a lot of ambitious things that this ownership group is doing for Kansas City, and it's showing now with sort of the player transactions that they're making in the off season. And this is one of 2 clubs at the moment. Again, disclaimer at the time of this recording, 2 clubs still looking in for their head coach, whether it's the current or the Red Stars. And for the current, they're building something here in terms of not just the roster on the field, but really the kind of culture that they're putting within their franchise. And I wrote all about it. You can see it on CBS Sports right now. We talk a lot about these moves that took place already and how this is really becoming a place, a desirable franchise and location that players are finding themselves perhaps wanting to be a part of and wanting to grow something in Kansas City, which says a lot, I think, about this offseason that we have been witnessing that introduces not 1 but 2 California sides, and we have seen the impact that these West Coast teams have had in terms of being desirable locations. And then you have a Kansas City side saying, Midwest is best, and we're going to show you how, and quite literally and quite frankly put the money where the mouth is, right? And we're seeing them not pick up 1 but 2 U.S. national team star players, built up
3 AD Franch, right? Like they got AD Franch last year in a trade.
They got her mid-season, but I'm looking at just even this offseason. If you're looking at just this offseason, which is very short because it's coming off of the tail end of the longest ever NWSL season, it's like really 2-ish, 3-ish maybe months of an off season, and there's not a lot of time and not a lot of windows, quite frankly, to maybe work out these deals. And here they are picking up 2 U.S. players just in this offseason, to go alongside and sort of really build up a spine with French, Mewis, and Williams now. So it's very impressive, I think, for Kansas City. I think they've sort of very quietly have shown that they are like strong contenders for off-season winners.
Yes.
And it's been
I think
impressive to see.
it's really so impressive. And now when you look at their roster and really where they started, the trades they made during the season last year, acquiring AD Franch, other players like Haley Mace, Kristen Hamilton, those are big players and big time impact players that changed the game for Kansas City. Then Sam Mewis going to Kansas City, that was the first big trade. We did talk about that on here and how what she can bring. And then when you look at positionally, Kristen Hamilton up top, Sam Mewis in the midfield, and AD Franch in goal defensively, you really are covering your field with just superstars. And now for the Current to add Lynn Williams into that mix, which based on quotes that were made, reports that went out, she asked for this trade to go from North Carolina to Kansas City Current. Back with her partner in crime, Sam Mewis, they do a podcast together, Snacks. They play on the women's national team together, and they're good friends. So this dynamic duo of Sam Mewis and Lynn Williams, who have played together not only in North Carolina, but on the national team together, that chemistry is fantastic, right? I mean, that just elevates it even more. I mean, Sam Mewis alone elevates it in the attacking presence for Kansas City. Lynn Williams alone elevates the creativity, the speed, the commitment to scoring goals and getting chances for Kansas City. And then when you combine that star power, that familiarity, that relationship that these two players have on the pitch, it's huge. This is huge for Kansas City, and they still don't even have a coach, and we know it's already going to be huge. It doesn't matter kind of what game plans are put into place for Kansas City, because they have the power of the players right now and the power to want to be a really good team in 2022 in the NWSL, to be an impact team their second year in the league. I mean, I'm saying it right now, like they are going to be a huge impact team.
Yeah, we're seeing like the development still of sort of this kind of this little bit of like trade partnership or pipeline, right? That's been happening between Kansas City and North Carolina, because yes, it absolutely reunites this sort of duo in Mewis and Williams, but they're also reconnecting Kristen Hamilton, who they played with the Courage for many, many years, where they won lots of things together, and a prospect in Haley Mace as well. So there's a little bit of continuity that's going to be happening for these for this sort of core of players within Kansas City. It's going to be interesting to take a look and see how that continues to develop with Kansas City. But Kansas City was still making moves in this one. That they made an additional move with Orlando Pride for Darian Jenkins. Kansas City receiving $75,000 in allocation money from the Pride and a 2023 second round pick. So a little bit of a movement there for Kansas City and Orlando Pride.